stunning statement. Why? Because a city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under the basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. So this is a stunning statement for this reason. Is it possible to be a Christian and not affect the society around you? Is it possible for water not to be wet? Is it possible for fire not to have heat? Is it possible for someone to have Christ residing in him or her and not to have an effect on the society around them? This is why this is such a scary verse to me. It seems to me that if we truly have Christ in our lives, and we're watching the disintegration of the culture around us, why are we not the purifying agent of salt, and why are we not dispelling the darkness? I don't really have an explanation for you, I'm afraid. All I can do is cast myself up on the mercy of God and say, God, for whatever I have done to contribute to this, I ask your forgiveness. And Lord, I want to be used of you, to see you bring repentance in my life, and for me to live out the Sermon on the Mount and to live these things out. Why? Because evidently we have become good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled under the foot of men. I mean, isn't that how the world treats the church today? Does the world have any respect for us whatsoever? I mean, who can blame them with all the scandals that's been in the church all these years? You know, going all the way back to televangelists and all these people that get found out, and you see all these things. Man, it's really, really stunning. But light is going to permeate the darkness. Now, don't think of that just as negative, but think that as positive. If you and I will take the Sermon on the Mount and we really live it out, and we take the means of grace and say, Lord, I'm going to be sincere about spending time in your word. I'm going to meditate upon it. I'm going to be a person of private prayer. I'm going to engage in these things. But how? How do I pray? Let me give you a couple of suggestions. Take the Lord's Prayer and pray it, because Jesus teaches you how to pray. Does anybody know where we have great instruction about how to pray the Lord's Prayer? Do you know in the Baptist confession that you have, I hope if you don't have one, I'll give you one. There's the confession there, but also in the back of that book is the Baptist Catechism. You know, the Baptist Catechism has the Lord's Prayer there, and it has 4 parts to each part of the Lord's Prayer, and it teaches you about that, and you can pray through that. It also has the 10 Commandments, and you can pray through the 10 Commandments. So it's a wonderful tool, even though that it's for children. It's the basic building blocks of the Christian faith, and it really does provide for you teaching. By the way, do you know that Martin Luther taught his barber how to pray? He went to get his haircut one day, and his barber said, can you teach us how to pray? And Luther taught him how to pray by taking the catechism of the 10 Commandments and the Lord's Prayer, and he taught his barber how to be a prayer warrior by taking what he had given to the children, because it's not just for the children, it's for all Christians that is so dynamic and life-changing. Do you feel as if that your prayer life has arrived? Do you feel as if that your private prayer life is where it needs to be? If not, I would challenge you to go back to the basics. Take out the Baptist Catechism, read it every day. It takes me about an hour to read it every day, and to be able to read it. And whenever I come to the Lord's Prayer, which is the very end, and right before that is the 10 Commandments, I pray through that. And boy, that's a wonderful way to begin your day, meditating, thinking about those things. And so I hope that will be a benefit to you as you see that. Now, as you see in this text, we do want to spend a few moments praying this evening. Man, notice as he draws these things to a close here, something of great value. He says, let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works. Now, question, church. Does that bother you that Jesus says good works. Because we're saved by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone. And it seems to me, if that's the way that we're going to be saved, why in the world is Jesus saying, let your good works shine? Because our works are what? Nothing more than filthy rags before a holy God. How does this work? Now, let me say two things to you. First of all, these good works are not something that the believer manifests in him or herself. It is the work of the Spirit of God and the Word of God in the Christian that are producing these good works. And so it's a really important point to realize that the good works that we have, they're only good because of the value that they are produced by the Word and of the Spirit. Second thing I'd say to you, again, the confession. The 1689 Confession has an entire chapter, I think it's chapter 12, dedicated to good works. That whole chapter talks about good works. And it will bring clarity to you whenever the Bible talks about good works. Like one of the points that it makes is very important. God is who determines what good works are, not you and me. And so it's not as if we get to decide what good works are. God determines what good works are, and he goes forward from there and begins to unpack that. And you can read that chapter and really get a good grasp of what good works are. But we are to let that shine. And certainly in this context, the good works are making sure that you do not have anger in your heart, that you don't have lust in your heart, that you stay married until death do you part, that you turn the other cheek, that if somebody asks you to go 1 mile, you go with them 2, you don't retaliate, you love your enemy, you pray for those that persecute you, that you spend time giving alms, you spend time praying, you spend time fasting, you spend time doing all these things, and all these things are the good works. So, therefore, that is how you're going to engage in this very, very dark, dark world. So anyway, for whatever it's worth, this is the reason why it is such a scary text to me. I don't really have a complete answer, unfortunately. I wish I did. And if you have insight to this text, I would love to hear from you, because whenever I wake up at 2 in the morning, these are the things that I'm thinking about. These are the things I'm pondering. And even when Neva's cat wakes me up at 2 or 3 in the morning, that's the thing I'm pondering about, wondering about. And so let me add a couple of folks to the prayer list here. You'll see under the R's, you'll see a new one highlighted, Oscar Rodriguez, serious eye injury, another eye injury. Oscar is a guy that works with my twin brother Barry in West Monroe. And he is what we'd call a common laborer. They build house pads, they pour concrete, they do all these various things. And Oscar helped Barry, myself, my nephew, and Neva, and the rest of our family to paint my sister's house years and years ago. We painted the brick house, and the first time it had ever been painted, the brick had been painted. And I'm telling you, Oscar was a tremendous worker, man. That guy knows what a work ethic is, and he was all in. And he's still a very young man. He's in his 30s. But the other day he was working, and a limb hit his eye. And, man, he is in bad shape. His eye will not heal. He's going back to the eye doctor tomorrow. And this is one of those fellows, the only way he can provide for his family, he's got to get up and get it every day. And if he don't work, they don't eat. And so if you would pray for Oscar Rodriguez and remember him. And you'll also see on the list here Mr. Homer Scott. Mr. Homer was my first Sunday school teacher after my conversion at First Baptist. I'm not First Baptist, at Trinity Baptist in Natchitoches. I got saved when I was at First Baptist, but soon transferred to Trinity Baptist, and Homer was the Sunday school teacher over there. And we had lost touch for several years, and when the flood happened in 16, he showed up at First Baptist Natchitoches. He had just retired as being a painter in Natchitoches. And for those of you that were here back then, you remember Homer Scott, that he came down for 2.5 years, and he helped put up sheetrock, but primarily mudded and painted sheetrock for 2.5 years. I mean, Homer, man, just like Oscar, both of them, Mr. Homer had a work ethic. I mean, he's 85 now, and so 16, how many years ago was that? That was, 6 years ago. So he was 78 years old whenever he was here, and Mr. Homer believed in working a half a day every day. I mean, he'd work 12 hours every day, and I mean, he would get it. I never forget the first house that we painted together was, Ronnie Lockhart's mama's house over there in Park Forest. And so, man, Mr. Homer's 78. Me and Micah Renfro was helping him. Mike was a pastor from Tennessee. And so we rolled that whole house, cut in that whole house. That is, we primed the whole house. And I thought, well, Homer, he's going to be ready for a Gatorade. He's ready to take a break. And man, he was working a little ahead of us. And we got all the primer on the wall and everything. He went over there and touched where paint started putting that primer on first. He said, guys, it's dry. Let's go ahead and paint it right now. Keep on going. And man, he was just a rolling. And that's why he worked every day for 2.5 years. He loved it. As though Mark, if you're watching tonight, Mark used to say, man, if there's a bus to go work in heaven, Homer's going to be the first one on it, man. He loved to work, And Mr. Homer was a neat guy, man. He was a colonel, a full colonel in the Army, served in Vietnam, and he left that to come back home to be a painter. And he actually had the launch codes for the nuclear arsenal in Europe. And they did, and Homer, he was just one of those guys that was just joy to be around. So pray for him. His health has decreased. If you remember, he had stroke several years ago. He went through rehab. He got back where he could work like that 12 hours a day. And whenever he got here, he'd be reading a book. But now the effects of the stroke, and I didn't know this, have really taken its toll again on him. And so really all he does is lay around the house. I mean, he just sits around the house. He doesn't read. He can't do that anymore. Just some tough things. So pray for Mr. Homer. He invested a lot in our church and our community for 2.5 years. So pray for him. All right. Any others to pray for tonight? Anybody else? Rick? Yeah. Yeah, I've called a few times and haven't been able to get her. I've left her messages. But, yeah, her and Lisa, man, Lisa's dying. I mean, that's what's going on. And she's had a really good life after they discovered the brain cancer. And she lived a lot longer than the doctors thought. She had really good quality of health for a while. However, that season has come to a close, and she's slowly passing away. So Miss Janelle flew up, and she's been with her for a little over a week and a half now. So pray for them. Thank you for mentioning her. Anybody else? Mike, I know you had a couple of them, brother. Yeah, so we've been praying for him. So he's in heaven now. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Well, that is wonderful. There are those rare lights in our community in there. There really are. Thank you. Yeah. Man, that's true. Oh, yeah. She's 7, 8, 9, okay. 9 now. Man, she's such a precious little girl, and taking medicine and losing her hair because of it, and just got a lot going on with her physically. I don't know, man. She saw more doctors than you could shake a stick at, and man, she's suffering. So pray for that little girl. Yeah, pray for her. Man, I tell you what, there is so much suffering. Interesting enough, in the catechism, one of the things I've noticed, when it talks about the fall, it doesn't just say the fall, and it says and it adds another word every time it talks about the fall and misery. The fall and misery. And I thought, boy, that's a perfect word for this. Yeah. Yeah. Nick LeBlanc is the pastor over at Central. Yeah, and they lost their baby, Michael. And, well, listen, I know y'all have had a busy day. Thank y'all. Y'all, today is also Mrs. Stella's birthday. And so it's just, we're very grateful for her. I texted Mr. Aubrey, reminded him, said it's Mrs. Stella's birthday. And I was afraid he's going to take her to McDonald's, but I was passed by Duke's, and I saw y'all over at Duke's. So I saw you. I saw, boy, Mr. Aubrey stepped up. I was afraid he's going to McDonald's today. So, but anyway. All right. Mike, would you pray for us tonight, please, sir?